Hello everybody and welcome to Golden Axe 2 on the Sega Mega Drive.
I think this one did not have an arcade version.
It did have an arcade, well, a few years after the last battle. In this land, the peace is threatened again by an evil power. The Lord of Darkness, Dark Guld, who should have been imprisoned in ancient times, arose again. He destroyed entire countries with his evil clan to bring this world into chaos. Once again, the free warriors have thrown themselves into a mighty battle. Alright, I actually love this title theme.
Yay.
Hell yeah! Basically, our man Naofumi Ataya did the music for this game, and that explains why the soundtrack is so superior.
It sounds a lot Sonic-y. I can hear that.
Alright, to answer your question too, actually this game did get an arcade release via Sega's Mega Play series, where they would take Mega Drive games and put them on and make arcade versions of that, much like they also did with Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 and stuff like that. However, yeah, unlike the first game, which started off as an arcade game, this game was made specifically for the Mega Drive. In fact, this game was not even developed by the original team that made the arcade original game. Instead, it was made by the team that made the Mega Drive port of the first game.
Mm-hmm. So, hey Tyris, I see that you're dyeing your hair for this game.
That begs the question, audience. So, what was the original Golden Axe arcade team doing at the time? Well, we'll get back to that next time.
Also, it was stated in the credits, it's the same guy who made the Shinobi, for example.
Sure. But I'm talking about the original team. I'm talking about the guy who made Altered Beast and the first Golden Axe on the arcade.
Okay.
You're probably wondering, Roddy, what was that guy doing in the meantime while the Mega Drive porting team did the second game? Well, we'll talk about that next time. For now, yeah, Golden Axe 2 is basically, well, just the first game again, really. This game doesn't really change anything for the formula. It's basically just the original game again, really.
I noticed that there's a bit more quality to the sprites. Also, Tyris is sporting an interesting headband now.
Yeah, this game was actually made from the ground up with the Mega Drive in mind, so obviously they were able to take much more advantage of the hardware.
The HUD is also slightly different, though the magic system is the same. As you may notice, Tyris has a strong startup for level 1 magic, but then she has only 1 bar per each subsequent level, while Gillius starts with 1 but requires 2 for 2, and then another 2 for 3.
The visuals of the first game was basically the porting team trying to compress and replicate to the best of their ability arcade visuals into the Mega Drive. This, however, was made already with the Mega Drive in mind, so obviously. And here's our first boss.
A Minotaur.
That's another thing about Golden Axe. Golden Axe 2 is incredibly short. It's not at all a long game. And by the way, right now I'm playing on easy mode. So we'll get back to normal mode. So because this game once again does the whole go ahead and beat normal mode.
Go home and be a family man.
Yeah.
Also, one thing that I didn't mention for the previous game is something that I forgot about.
Hold on, let me explain this. Instead of thieves, we have sorcerers, I think, who steal.
Yeah, the gist is the same. Beat the shit out of them.
Yeah, like instead of vials, we have magic books. But yeah, they're basically still the same thing as the thieves, just slower and, well, that's it really. They look differently, but they serve the exact same purpose.
Really. They look like Javas.
It's weird. Anyway, after the battle in the ravaged village, we decided to start for the ancient... Don't you mean head for the ancient ruins? Start for the ancient ruins. Gotta love the translation. Whatever, some moron didn't know English. Okay, so yeah, that's basically all there is to say, really. Because as you guys can see, this is basically the same game again. So if you like the first game and just want more of the same...
It just has new enemy types, new steeds to ride and everything.
I mean, I'll say that Chicken Leg looks cooler now. There's that. And yes, the skeletons are back, and they're just as frustrating as in the original game.
But I was saying, like, if you remember, the Castle of Illusion HD version was done by Sega Australia, the team that Sega had back in the day to do minor projects. And back then, they did had an idea called like Sega Reborn or something, like a project called Sega Reborn, which would have been sort of not necessarily just remakes, but reboots or reimagining of Sega's classic IPs, including this one. And the extra thing it will be they will share technically the universe in a sense of they will have some Easter eggs. Maybe one character will be like a guest in another, and they actually had a prototype for what they wanted to do with Golden Axe. And judging by the quality of the footage that was eventually leaked on the internet, it was really good. Pretty much a good transposition of a modern beat 'em up, but just with the same ideas, mechanics and aesthetics of the classic. But Sega didn't. Oh, Jesus Christ. But Sega didn't like the project, so they decided to can it, and after Castle of Illusion HD, they closed the entire team of Sega of Australia because they were having financial troubles.
Brilliant.
Thanks again. The project ideally was supposedly in 2013, by the way.
So yeah, the green Javas give you food, just like the green thieves.
That drop kick.
Anyway, we found the enemy was using the ancient ruins as a base. We have destroyed it, and now we leave for the enemy's headquarters.
Brilliant.
Don't you mean we finish for the enemy's headquarters?
Yeah. Alright, let's continue. I will say, however, that like I said before, Nofumi Ataya soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack of the entire series. Like I really like it's faithful to the spirit of the original game, but the melodies in particular are way more memorable. Not that the original soundtrack wasn't good. It was good, but
I get what you mean.
But not as good as this.
It's like the Mega Man 2 to into the first game's Mega Man 1. Oh,
I love how that Minotaur just decided to spontaneously go into the pit, following the bottomless pit.
Well, remember too, it's the first game also did that. It's just like when it's part of
moronic AI.
Yeah, moronic AI. All right.
Go on, get up again. I'm sure it'll work next time. Nope, it didn't.
I have to wonder why those Minotaurs have boxers on them, but whatever.
Modesty, again, I guess. It's kind of funny. If you haven't, I don't know if you checked it when you played the game, but the developer room of the first God of War says that in earlier draft they wanted to be a bit more graphical, with the characters' genitalia, and to the point of having the Cyclops actually having penises. But unfortunately, they had to actually scrap that out and just give them generic fur on them. But yeah, at some point they actually wanted to go the extra mile, which for a first party, even M-rated. Oh Jesus! For a first party of a company like Sony, I don't remember any major examples. I did it back in the day. For a more modern one, there are scenes of actual nudity, and I mean full on, including male genitalia, in the ordinary 1886.
As you can see, everybody, for some reason, Gillius's magic was changed from lightning to rocks, and get that.
Get it in season 4.
And
it doesn't make sense, Joe. It's called Thunderhead.
And look at
that's what I mean, though. Dwarves tend to be very earth-based in a lot of mythology.
Yes, Pedro.
And as you may see, to reach the enemy's castle, which is blocked by high mountains, we reluctantly decide to march through the cave called Dragon's Throat.
Mora's Mines.
That sounds totally safe.
All right.
Absolutely.
Well, they did say reluctantly.
It's kind of funny because people think that referencing Lord of the Rings basically started with the Peter Jackson movies, but no. Even back in the day, the Dungeons and Dragons already took a lot of inspiration a couple of its materials and mythos from Tolkien, and even Final Fantasy technically, because the first game already introduces stuff like the Mithril equipment, and that is a term created for Tolkien's work. So
in the meantime, you might have also noticed how this game is also following the same pattern as the original game. First a level with a proper big boss, and after that a level where the boss is just an endurance round of mooks.
For a moment, I thought you were going to suggest that we were going to ride a mysterious animal that we thought was a piece of land.
Surprisingly, no. In here, they're just quote-unquote reluctantly going through a volcano.
Condolences
I mean,
to that
I guess
carrying land on his back.
I guess Axe Battler and Tyris player are more, equipped for the job since they already go around in skimpy outfit.
I guess. All right, and we also introduced the black-colored variety of skeletons. They're basically just the same thing, just with more health.
I actually like that they're themed.
Ash covered.
I actually like that they're themed. These one don't have a sword but a pickaxe because we're in a mine of sorts, so it makes sense. It's a bit of attention to detail that I actually like.
I also dig that they're blackened because that would make sense. I mean, cool. If they were scorched or burned, of course their bones would be blackened.
Sure. All right. So yeah. Also, this is one of the new enemies, like Tay was saying, like the lizard with it looks like
golden shield.
It looks like the armored lizard monster from Yu-Gi-Oh.
Wouldn't be surprised if they took inspiration from the classic kobolds from D&D. Because there's a bit of weird, not misconception necessarily, but a weird confusion. Because some RPGs treat kobolds like they're lizards, while others treat them like they're werewolves. So I don't know why there's this ambiguity, but the classic D&D kobolds are lizard folk that are similar in appearance to these.
Anyway, the red dragon is nowhere near as useful as he was in the first game. He just throws a small little
I can see
flame.
that.
So
it's like Spyro in the GBA crossover with Crash. He just spits fire like that.
Oh god.
all right, let's continue.
I sense you're not a fan, Dwibs.
Well, I haven't played the game, but from what I've seen, it's not exactly very exciting.
It's also very short. There's that.
It's a perfectly serviceable game. It's just that it's the first game again, and it does. And despite having a quite better soundtrack, it doesn't cover it's nowhere near as charming as the original. It in comparison to the original, it feels a bit generic. Like it just feels like it's doing just the bare minimum. It's like the developers were afraid to mess with the formula, so they stuck with it as much as they can, basically.
It's kind of the same that happens with Streets of Rage at the end of the day. It's more of a case of, stick with what did the original K, and just expand a bit around it.
It's like the old saying says, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Final Fight also did that for its first couple of entries, for example.
Oh, obviously, I perfectly understand that. It's just that I think that this game in particular doesn't come across nearly as charming. It doesn't have the same wit and personality that the original. For example, there's no cheeky credits of any kind, because even the Mega Drive version had the whole play ball thing. We have passed through the long red hot cave and found the castle gates standing in front of us.
Cool story,
this
bro.
is almost too easy.
But it's barely an inconvenience so far, so...
There you go. It's just because they're the primary major big improvement is the overall soundtrack. Whereas the which is great because Golden Axe 3. I don't even remember a single track from Golden Axe 3.
Me neither.
It's bland. It's just rather the Nofimiata unfortunately did not return for free. I don't even know who composed for free, to be honest.
That's the thing, Jova. As you will see for yourself, 3 is such a big departure because it's kind of the opposite of this one. It tries to do way too many things at the same time, and as a result, it kind of loses a bit its identity.
How's Golden Axe 4?
There is no
there is no 4.
You know what I mean.
Oh, that is a different. Remember, Jova? That one is a different story, and it's not a number entry.
I think if you want, Joe, we can talk about Revenge of the Fatter, or the game after we're gonna do after this. The Revenge of the Fatter is the what many Golden Axe fans consider the true sequel to the original game, made by the same team that made the arcade original. It's a good game. I like it, but I still don't think it's all that great. If I'm going to be totally honest, it's fine. It's just that I don't see. I mean, for a game that a lot of fans out there, hype up as the true sequel to Golden Axe, it's definitely a much better sequel than this one. I agree with that, but I don't know. Like, I still think people overhype it a bit, to be honest.
So how would you rank the spin-offs overall then?
The best
titles in general.
Okay. Is Revenge of Death Adder considered a spin-off or just a non-numbered sequel?
A non-numbered sequel. Technically, this is the official Golden Axe 2. Revenge of the Adder is more like a spiritual sequel of sorts.
Keep in mind, though, Golden Axe 3 kinda continues from that in terms of elements from the story, for little as they are. So, like, if you want an actual chronology, quote-unquote, is the first game, second, Revenge of the Adder, and third. The way we're actually commenting on.
I see.
Especially considering how...
I haven't seen, like I mentioned in the previous game, I haven't seen the spin-offs for the Master System, Golden Axe Warrior and Axe Battle Legend, A Legend of Golden Axe. And the Beast Rider was supposed to be a reboot in the first place, so it's not tied to these.
No, not really. It's not... Well, Jova, I will still take the first game overall. I think it's specifically the Mega Drive version. I think it's the overall more charming and memorable game. Congratulations, but true peace will not come until you play and defeat the harder modes.
I guess to be fair,
Go
the
back
final
and try
boss.
again, pussy.
I guess to be fair, the final boss, that would have been a bit anticlimactic. Like, what even was that we were facing?
One of the headless knights.
Anyway, skipping that, our enemy, Dark Guld, must be in this castle. Now take courage, the real battle has just started. Alright, so now we're in normal mode with the level that comes right after that. The game just interrupted us. Here's this is where, when you play the game in normal mode, here's where the primary problem with the gameplay comes into mind for me.
BS difficulty?
That's the thing, not so much BS difficulty, Jova, it's more so that the game is not properly balanced. Let me explain. The game, just like the original Mega Drive port, has only 3 continues per player. Here's the problem. Unlike with the original Golden Axe, which was a very easy game, and the overall 3 continues per character thing was enough to beat the game relatively stress-free, as long as you are fairly good at the game. This game, on the other hand, has an incredibly difficult final boss that can drain your continues, and I would argue this game should have had at the very least 4 continues per player, for the sake of minimizing stress a bit, because not to mention it feels like a bit of a very frustrating difficulty spike, where most of the game, as you can see, is relatively stress-free in terms of gameplay, but then suddenly we get to the final boss, and the final boss is just a freaking pain.
SNK tier.
Yeah.
I see.
So it becomes a problem where it's not quite as refined balance-wise as the original Mega Drive game. So yeah, there's also that problem. Like the Revenge of the Adder, again, is actually properly balanced. It also helps that it's an arcade game, so obviously it's a bit more excusable. But this is a Mega Drive game. So I think for a game, you'll see more when we get further in.
Would you say it's more okay? Would you say it's like sort of also a case of them swarming you with enemies, upping the damage output as well, or the fact that some enemies can soft box you, or sort of a combination of those?
How about this, Jeff? I'll describe the boss to you, and you can make up your own mind. It's
So
basically
this isn't like, well, that boss is the main bout of BS.
Pretty
or
much, Job.
unbalanced
Again,
difficulty?
it's similar to its classic difficulty steep curve. Like the entire game is technically a bit more balanced, but then this motherfucker just strolls around with his little blingo war and mops the floor with you. You know, unless you're very careful and specific, and even that is not gonna save you on the long run.
That's
Indeed.
what we in the TV tropes industry either call the wake-up call boss or that one boss.
No,
This sounds
Jova,
like a
that is a bit
mixture
more
of the
generic,
two.
Jova. Again, the specific trope you want to go for is SNK boss. It's not only applied to fighting games, but for this scenario, it fits it also well.
it's also
I
the
guess like he's literally the one boss out of there that feels borderline
Cheap,
impossible
yes.
to deal with and cheap.
the
yeah.
final battle against Dark Guld is basically a rehash of the Deathbringer boss battle from the first game on the Mega Drive. It also has two mooks, and this time they're really immortal. They're not even just full buff with incredibly long health. No, they're flat out immortal. The boss itself is way harder. It can do magic, of course, but he's way harder. You're gonna see it for yourself in a few minutes.
Yeah.
Well, this is definitely a final gauntlet sort of battle. I'll give it that.
Mm-hmm.
Completely you facing pretty much a retread of all enemies here and there.
But
Although
as
I
that,
will
as you can
admit,
see also in this case, the wizards are actually attacking you, rather than just stealing stuff.
Yeah.
I will admit though, is it just me or does it feel like there's less enemy variety than in the last game?
Yeah,
It
there's that too.
It does feel like it because the game lasts longer. Like if I was playing the original Mega Drive game, I mean our playthrough of Golden X1 only lasted as long as it did because we were covering both versions. Like if I was just playing the Mega Drive original, it would be over by this point.
It's not just that, but some enemies did return while others didn't. Like the female mooks didn't return. The sort of demon
The bearded guys, for
dog,
example, the fat generals, for example. This game is also very obsessed in showering with skeletons, and a lot of variants of that.
and
I've got a little
minotaurs.
I got some actually. Considering Sega's seeming new initiative where any franchise they were considering reviving, but they don't have any financial confidence in it to do it themselves, they just license it out to others to do. Do you think this could be one of them in the future?
Oh, absolutely! It worked.
Oh.
It worked for Streets of Rage. Why not?
I would
with this
love
either?
it if Dotemu made a Golden X4.
Ooh.
I mean,
In Streets of Rage 4.
The developers of Streets of Rage 4.
I mean, if we can get an Alex Kidd revival, then
Even
Yeah,
that,
I could see
it seems to be more of a remake of the original. That one, Streets of Rage 4 is an actual proper sequel. A long-awaited one. That.
I definitely agree that it is very possible. Like there are plenty of studios that could absolutely go to town with the overall idea.
So
of
there you go.
Golden Axe.
We've officially arrived at the
The throne room.
the throne room that was in the
so-
opening sequence.
Wait. Oh, and once again we go up against the Headless Knight.
This time go with a soul.
They also
sword?
they also do that thing again where they make you think this is the true final boss, but in reality there's someone more, of course.
Wait. So you're telling me that the bear guy was a Headless Knight all along?
Yes, suppose.
No, well, remember, the intro just showed us how Dark Guld looks like him. This is clearly not him.
So in that case, they're not really fooling anyone. So
Only the technique it's a player knows the character don't scenario.
I suppose.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also getting to a point where my brother is almost about to spend his last continue since he's almost.
And wants to keep the magic meter.
Oh dear. And this isn't even his final form.
Bonk.
God damn it! Die. Thank you.
There we go.
And here we go. Here's the final boss.
The Golden Axe itself.
A Death Adder ripoff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought for a second, I thought the axe was just gonna take extensions and float about, and that was the boss.
There you go.
But yeah, he is still the guy who has now the golden axe. It seems that these three fellows cannot actually let the artifact stay in place.
So there you go. Again, just like Deathbringer, he can use magic.
So I see now is the time where you guys are basically using all the special moves that you can.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Pretty much.
And look at that. My brother just got a game over. Even though we literally just started this boss. It's one of those cases where I think that the game should have had 4 continues per player instead of 3. Because they stuck to the free continue system from the first game. But the problem is that the game doesn't seem to be designed with that in mind to me. Like, I mean, if this was hard mode, I would be more understanding. But I'm normal mode. You know, the normal mode should still be fairly accessible. Especially considering how I pretty much can plow through the first game with no problem, so I should be able to beat this fairly reasonably. Don't bother. Yeah, basically these skeletons keep respawning, as you can see. So don't even bother. They're flat out immortal. Even if you kill them, they'll just return. There you go. See, another one.
But don't even drop a magic or help, so it's not like a good thing like farming them. I guess you can argue you keep Dark Guld busy by having to revive them in order to prevent using something magic, but I don't know.
As you might have noticed, there's something weird about this boss battle right now. That's because sneakily I gave myself via Game Genie infinite health because, like I said, yeah,
this is bullshit.
I would have lost this battle if it wasn't for that because I would argue that this game needed 4 continues per player. Like, I think 3 continues is not really enough, because this guy is a fucking HP drainer. Because trust me, it doesn't come across because I'm using invincible cheat, but this guy drains your HP, I assure you.
I think him pretty much whittling you down to your last continue, plus him taking out your brother was a good example.
Basically what happened, Jove, is after my brother died, I was like, okay, fuck this, pause the emulation, add Game Genie code, and continue. Because fuck that. No way I'm starting this game again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, when the skeleton die, they sound like teenagers.
Well, this is not like in the first game where they went ah.
So basically, these guys are like Sad's cousins that he doesn't like to talk about or something.
You can't do that, skeletons. You're just bones. You need a throat and lungs to scream. So. Yeah.
That's their secret. That's why.
And this time he explodes.
It explodes. What is this, Metal Gear?
There you go.
It explodes with you, by
and the goal. And after the long, hard battle, you finally defeat the evil emperor. Wow! Now the world will be. It's literally the first game's ending again.
Why
you are a true hero.
They even say notice there that they even say you finally defeated the evil emperor. That's literally what they say in the first game too.
Oh, and the heroes appear here.
And that's it. That's the ending. No cheeky.
Being gangbanged by the village.
No cheeky thing where Gillius plays ball with a long moan or anything like that. The ending is as lazy as it gets. But yeah, that was Golden Axe 2.
That was certainly a sequel.
That was certainly a sequel, yes. Jova, your thoughts?
Yeah, that was a sequel. I mean, it looks fun. I'm sure it plays fine except for that final boss, but otherwise I feel like there's less to it than the first game. Like there's less variety, less visual spectacle. I mean, don't get me wrong. Technically, the visuals are touched up, so this technically looks better, but it feels like there was more visual spectacle with the first game, especially with the set pieces and whatnot. Special mention in going to the Eagle's Eye and all that.
Also, Java had more soul compared to this one.
I don't want to call this game soulless because it does have some soul to it, but yeah, the first game did have more soul to it. Also, the various endings were nice and quirky too. Oh, they had more dialogue back then, like, it's weird for a sequel to feel like it has less of a plot than the first game, especially in the Genesis era, but here we are. I mean, it's by no means a bad game. It's just, it feels like, yep, it's pretty much a checklist sort of sequel. It definitely marks off enough to be a fun experience, just not as good as the original.
What do you think about Tyris' music?
Okay, yeah, that was definitely pretty good, although I'll admit there were some tracks that I kind of liked better in the first game. Special mention goes to the credits theme.
Oh, definitely, yeah. This credits theme is not particularly interesting, but I would argue the title screen for this game is fucking glorious.
Oh, it is. The music is definitely one of the higher points of this game.
Too.
Yeah, it's a sequel that does one step forward and three backward, because while it has overall, quality of life improvements, it just lacks a lot of things that made the first game, especially the console port, mind you, have more personality on its own. So it is a bit of a shame. It will still be nice to play, but Dark Guld is just a bitch as a final boss, so I really recommend you just do the easy mode, get insulted by the game, and put it away. Basically, that's as basic as it gets. But that's pretty much it for me. Yeah, the first game is the soundtrack is better, sure, but it alone cannot really save, and it's still not like something like, say, Yuzo Koshiro composing for for Streets of Rage. I'm sorry.
No.
It's still better technically, so I will not detract from that, but it's not still that spectacular. Next.
Whoops.
It looks okay. I mean, like I said before, I'm not exactly a huge fan of these kinds of games in general, but from what I've seen, it looks fine. I can't comment on the music, unfortunately, because I had to turn mid-TV down so it wouldn't overlap with the audio, so unfortunately I don't get to hear any of the apparent coolness, I'm afraid.
That's okay. It's okay, fine. For me, no, yeah, it's a perfectly serviceable sequel. There's nothing inherently wrong with it. It's just that it lacks oomph. It definitely lacks the charm that the original game had. The original game had a really good charm to it. This game, on the other hand, I don't know. It just feels like there's less of it. Like, it feels very. It looks like it just got the job. It just feels like they did the bare minimum to make a sequel that is perfectly serviceable and didn't really go above and beyond at all. They did just what they needed. They took this as just, okay, we have to make a sequel now. Let's just basically rehash the second game and not put in nearly as much thought into the overall experience. Let's just basically. It feels like a very mechanically minded game that doesn't absolutely. It focuses entirely on just like feeling like, okay, there you go. This is definitely a Golden Axe game. It works, and then they call it a day and gave it in for release. That's basically it. It's a Golden Axe game that works. That's basically the best thing I can say about this game. It works. It functions.
Nice.
It functions. But the soundtrack is really good. While there are some tracks that I prefer from the first game, like Jova said, this game still has some really good songs. I'm a particularly big fan of the title theme myself. So yeah, it works. That's it. That's all that I can say. But it's okay, everybody, because now we're going to go for a more interesting sequel made by the original creator of the Golden Axe series. An arcade exclusive spiritual sequel that never at all was released, for as much as the fans have asked Sega to re-release it. Maybe M2 will re-release it as part of the as part of the Sega Ages lineup on the Switch. Hopefully, please, Sega,
Wouldn't surprise me.
Please, Sega, let them re-release it. That would be nice. Since you're whatever. Tune in next time, everybody, for Golden Axe: Revenge of Death Adder.
See you then.
See ya.
Yeah.